Hello and welcome to session number 11 of my November webinar series. Today I'm going to be talking about vital piano comping techniques. These are techniques that you just need to know if you're going to be a good comping partner and a good accompanier of soloists, singers, and even if that means that you're singing or accompanying yourself. So before I move on, let me just tell you, like, all of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2016 specials are at studywithwillie.com. If you haven't taken a look at them, please do take a look at them. This is the best time of year to be able to get the deepest discounts in memberships and DVDs, downloads, all of that kind of stuff. So take a look at that, and all the information is on that page. All right, so let's get started. Let me play this example for you, first of all right? This is example number 1. Let me just play this for you. Okay, so now I want you to think about, does that sound like a good comping example or not? And by the way, today isn't going to be a long session. We're going to do about 15, 20 minutes because I have some very specific things that I want to show you and then let you practice rather than giving you too much information. So what do you think? Do you think this is a good example of comping or not? So now I'm going to play it again, and this time I want you to imagine that you're a soloist who's playing over this, like maybe you're a horn player or a guitar player or whatever, or you're a vocalist trying to sing over this. Okay, so now, in my mind, this is not a good example of comping. This is not great comping, and the reason is for a couple of things. Number one, okay, the very first thing is, let me do this, there's just no space, okay? There's literally like this is it for space in this example, okay? Everything else has been filled up with notes, just notes everywhere, okay? So there's just no space whatsoever for the soloist to be able to have some room to breathe. When you're accompanying someone, and then remember, accompaniment means it could be a soloist, it could be a singer, so these are not techniques that are exclusive only to if you're a piano player accompanying, like, say, a saxophone player. You know, this could be like a piano player accompanying a singer, and it doesn't matter if you're the one singing or if someone else is singing, okay? So when you're accompanying, you want to leave some space because that's where the other person is able to kind of like shine, and it gives them some room to be at the forefront. Remember, an accompaniment, to accompany, means that you are supporting. You're not trying to go in front of, all right? You're not trying to supersede them, okay? So in this example, I find that it's very, man, it's just a lot of stuff going on. That's the first thing. The second thing is, look at some of these chord voicings that are going on. So right in here, a lot of tension. Man, a lot of tension. This one right down here, lower interval limits, okay? So it's really low. So I'm starting out really tense right away, and then, I mean, that chord, way too low. Now maybe if I did something like this, that's a little bit better, but by putting all that in, now it really muddies that sound up, and then a lot of tension there. Now, is that tension a bad thing? No, of course it's going to depend upon the situation, okay? Like maybe you're playing some kind of avant-garde piece, or this would be appropriate. But I'm thinking of this in terms of just the first 3 measures of a 12-bar blues. You're playing at a jam session, and then you got all these, like, ooh, I got these new upper structure triads and stuff. Like, I want to try out these different chords, and like, let me try those upper structure triads and put all this stuff in there. And my point is that putting all of that stuff in there like that, it could sound too tense, and it can kind of now take away from the sound of good comping, okay? So, all right, this is an example of, like I said, not all that great. Let's take a look at an example of something that's a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay, so now take a look at this. Let me put the drum track on here. that again. Okay. All right, so now before I forget too, you will get the sheet music and the drum track if you're watching this webinar. If you have not signed up, go to pianowithwillie.com/November. All right, and there's a sign up page right there for the webinar, so you could still sign up and get access to the sheet music, the replay, and the jam track. The jam track also does a measure of C. Okay, so it does a measure of C, then a measure of F, another measure of C, and then there's one more measure of C over here before going back to the beginning. Okay, so so let me play it one time just so you can hear it. 2, 3. So. So one more measure of C, then back to the beginning. Okay, so now what makes this a better example, I think, is one, look at the chord voicings. Nice open chord voicings. 3rd, 7th down here, 9th, 5th root. It's just a chordal chord voicing. We'll talk about that in the Piano with Willie site. Okay, so chordal voicings or voicings in fourths. Right, real nice concept there. And then you see what I do here on the top note here as well? I added a little bit of motion in here. Da, 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 right, bam, bam, ba, da. So now that top note, okay, the top note actually has a little bit of a line going on. So you notice this little line here. So, now, does it have to be just that? No, it could be a... Right? You can do a bunch of stuff, but again, you want to be careful, right? You start doing too much stuff. Remember, you are accompanying. You're not trying to like, you're not trying to take away what the soloist is doing. But this kind of stuff right here, okay, these little tiny little things like that, like add to the soloist, because what you do is you can kind of lead the soloist, and you can kind of support them and give them an idea. So like you might play ba 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 da, and then the next time you give them that little idea that then they can build into this whole solo. So sometimes a soloist would take something that you play and they're going to incorporate it into their solo because they're listening and reacting to what it is that you're doing, right? So you want to be careful that you don't overplay. You want to be careful that you don't do too much. You want to be careful that your voicings are not so dense that you're not leaving any room for the soloist to be able to weave in and out. Because when those voicings are so dense like that and so tense, now the soloist doesn't have the ability to move into that tension because you've already filled that tension spot. Okay? Whereas something like this is very open. So now if the soloist wants to go, the soloist wants to like kind of move outside like that, they can, because now you haven't filled up all that space. Now, if I'm like doing something like this and the soloist is playing like their Mixolydian scale, it's going to sound like, whoa, like really kind of disjointed and not like you guys are working together. So, in here, voicings are much more open. There's a nice little melodic motif here. Still, same, a lot of rhythm in here, right? So it's still like not a bunch of space, right? But the difference though is that with these voicings being more open like this, right? Now it opens up the sound a little bit more for the soloist, okay? Now the soloist might kind of catch in some of this rhythm, ba 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 ba. They might catch into, they might clue into some of that rhythm that you're playing there. But take a look at this, ba. Now what do? I hold this out for 3 beats. Okay, actually 3.5 beats, right, with this tied over note. So that 3.5 beats there makes it so that now there's some room for the soloist right in here to do some stuff. And then I end it with this little da-da, that little stab. Now the other thing to notice is that the dynamics. Ba, ba, boo, da, ba, 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 da. right? So listen to big band horns. That's the place to get all of that. Listen to the Buddy Rich Orchestra or Artie Shaw Band, that kind of stuff. Count Basie, Duke Ellington. Listen to the horns and how they go up, and they do that swell. That's exactly what I'm doing here. Right? Getting that swell. All right. Now let's move on to the last example. And this is comping example number 3. Now this one's interesting because now I'm starting to use half-step motion with these chords. So I go from a C7 chord down to a B7, back up to C7, and then G flat 7 to F7, and then back to B7, and back to C7. Now underneath all of this, this is what's really interesting. You have a C, an F, and a C for the bass notes. Okay, so that's what the bass is doing. Going from a C chord to an F chord to a C. But you have all these other chords in here, right? But that's okay. That tension gets released quickly. You notice that we quickly go from a B to a C. We quickly go from a G flat to an F. We quickly go from the B to the C, right? So all of that tension that's created by those auxiliary chords gets released. Let's play that. So now this, so can you hear how I even have the space as the one comping to be able to throw some stuff in there. So if I have that space to be able to throw some stuff in there, then the soloist most definitely has that space. So this is a much better example, I think, of some interesting comping, but then also some comping that provides a lot of support, a lot of interest to the soloist, but it doesn't take away from your job of accompanying what it is that, what you should be doing, okay, what your job is. Now, definition of comping that I like to use with students is basically comping is putting rhythm to chords. It's basically all that's going on, right? And comping is rhythmicizing, putting rhythm to chords, but doing it in a way that's not going to take away from the melody or from the person or instrument that you are accompanying, okay? So it should be, it's an accompaniment. You're working together with them. It's a collaboration between you and the soloist, you and the vocalist, you and the other instrumentalist, okay? So that's what you want to keep in your mind. So there's no one right way of comping chords, all right? But some things to consider that we've talked about here today, all right? Let's do this. Oops. All right, so 1, watch out about voicings being too dense, okay? You want to make sure that your voicings are not too dense. Number 2, space is the place, okay? Add space. And when I say space, it doesn't mean you have to not play. It can mean that you're just like holding the chord out. Holding the chord out is still space, okay? Number 3, lines, okay? Melodic lines, right? Like look for melodic lines. Right? Because that helps to spur on some ideas for the soloist. Now, be careful that you don't play too much. Right? Number 4, interest. Right? So that's adding some interest of the half steps. Notice I went down a half step, went up a half step. And if you have questions about that, there's plenty of lessons at pianowithwillie.com on all of that. And I'm happy to answer those questions there. I don't have the ability today to answer any questions on that. But, you take the same voice and you move it down a half step or you move it up a half step. Same notes, just all the notes down a half step, all the notes up a half step. The most important thing to remember, though, when comping, okay, do your job, okay? You need to do your job. And your job is that you are there to accompany and to support the person that you're accompanying, all right? Be that a singer or an instrumentalist, even if that singer happens to be you. All right, so be careful when you're playing that you don't play too much, and think about those 4 points, adding some interest, thinking about some melodic lines. Make sure that your chord voicings are not too dense, all right? So really think about all of that stuff. All right, so anyway, thank you for joining me in today's session. I know it was a shorter session, but I just want to get you some of those concepts out there, so now you could try practicing them, and then now you'll have this play along track and you'll have the sheet music, so you can kind of play along with this stuff and try it out at home and see how you do with this stuff. Like I said, if you're interested in studying with me, just go back to studywithwillie.com. We have a bunch of Black Friday specials. We have Cyber Monday specials now today, so make sure that you check those out. This is the best time of year to lock in the lowest rates that we have for memberships and also for downloads. Downloads right now are 51% off. We've never done that low a discount on downloads, so make sure you take advantage of that. That sale is coming to an end tomorrow at end of business day, so it's 4 p.m. Eastern time. That sale will be coming down. So please do take a look at that. Thank you all very much. Do me a favor too. If you like this video, like it, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not, go to YouTube and do a search for Jazz Edge. Make sure you subscribe to my channel because I send out a lot of these free tutorials and whatnot. So it's a great way to get new information and new ideas. Be sure to write a comment below the video as well. That helps as well because I like to hear what it is that you have to say. And if you have questions, you can ask some questions there as well. And of course, post it on Facebook. Anything you could do to help spread the word about Piano with Willie, that helps me. And in turn, it helps you as well. All right. So anyway, thank you all very much. And I will see you all in the next session. We have another session coming up. Let's see. Do I have the schedule here? The next session is coming up. When is that? I believe that is going to be on, yes, this is the schedule, the 30th, okay? So November 30th on Wednesday, I'm going to, that's going to be a good one, talking about my gig preparation techniques. And I'm also in there going to be talking about stage fright as well and nervousness. So that's going to be a longer webinar, and I'm also going to be doing that as a Q&A as well, so you'll be able to ask me questions. So Wednesday will be a long webinar. So be sure to check that one out on November 30th. All right, so anyway, thank you all very much, and I will see you guys soon.